distinguish the differences between trait and phenotype. So how did Gregory Mendel control the fertilization of the pea plant? It's very simple. He just used scissors and paintbrush. Let's say if he wants to use the pollen from the white flower to fertilize the purple flower. So what does he do? He first uses scissors to cut out the stamen from the purple flower so that it prevents the self-fertilization of the purple flower. And then he used the paintbrush to get the pollen from the white flower and then deposit or transfer the pollen to the carpel of the purple flower. So that's why he has a strict control of the fertilization. And then after fertilization, of course, the flower will the fruit, or you may call it the ovary, will be fertilized, and then you have the fruit or the pod. And then he used the seed in the pot to plant an offspring. The offspring, we call it F1. So the parents, they call it P. He called it P. P generation. The offspring is called F1 generation. F stands for filial. Filial. Okay, we have more terms to define. Okay, so as you know that F1 generation, filial 1, the first filial generation is the fertilization between a purple and white flower. So that we call F1 generation is a hybrid. Hybrid, they are the offspring of the two different purebred varieties. So when he transferred the pollen from white flower to purple flower, we call it a cross. And the parental plant is called P generation. The offspring between the parent is the F1 generation. And then if we cross the F1 generation with each other, then we get the F2 generation. Okay, so don't worry, in this class it is just a survey of general biology. We won't go into too deep, so we'll only talk about 3 generations. Okay, more terms. What is monohybrid cross? Monohybrid cross meaning that it's only one trait. Mono means one. So this is what Mendel initially did. He only looked at one trait at a time and then do the crossing. So the purebred parent, he only focused on one trait. And then study the changes of that particular trait in F1 generation and also in F2 generation. So remember, one trait, for example, he only looked at the flower color, okay? But then the parent plant, they can have different flower position, they may have different seed color or seed shape, but the only thing he cares about is the flower color. So he neglects all other traits, but he only focus on one trait. And what happened is that after the cross, he found that all F1 plants have purple flowers. Remember, the P generation, the parent is the purebred of purple crossing the purebred of white. How come the all F1 generation they will be purple? What about the white color? what happened to the white color? White color flower? Did they disappear or what? So let's take a look. Okay, when the P generation, the parent generation, you have the purple flower crossed with the white flower. It is purebred, as I told you that Mendel did the self-fertilization. That means the purple flower just fertilize themselves for many generations. The white flower fertilize themselves for many generations, so that he get only purple flower, and then he only get the white flower. Then he used those plants to cross each other, and then he F1 generation. And the F1, they are all purple. All purple. So what happened to the white color? So this is the question that I used to ask students in class. Is it now lost? Well, most of my students know the answer. They said that no. Yes, the answer is no. Why? Because when he crossed F1 generation among each other, so basically he's crossing purple flower among purple flower. In F1 generation, he got some purple flower and some are white flower. The ratio is approximately 3/4 of the plant he got purple flower, and then 1/4 of the flower they are white flowers. So this is important ratio that you need to know. 3:1. This is something that you need to memorize. And 3:1, this is what we call the phenotype or phenotypic ratio. We call it phenotypic ratio. It's 3:1. Remember phenotype. What's the meaning of phenotype? Meaning that it's the variation of the trait. In here, we are studying the trait, which is the flower color, and the phenotype is purple and white. That's why we call it phenotypic ratio. So we got 3 purple flower and 1 white flower. So we call it phenotypic ratio. So based on the result, Mendel formed 4 hypotheses. Okay, there are alternative versions of a gene that account for the variation that we call it allele. Basically, he found out allele. So allele can be dominant or can be recessive. Dominant allele, they can have one color. For example, dominant allele in this case is purple. Recessive allele, they are white color. The second hypothesis. So the organism can be homozygous or can be heterozygous. What does it mean? When the organism has 2 identical alleles, they are homozygous. When they have 2 different alleles, they are heterozygous. Okay. We will give you a concrete example later to explain to you what do I mean identical allele and a different allele. And then you can have dominant allele. We already talked about that. We can have dominant allele or we can have recessive allele. So the dominant allele is the allele that would show, that would determine, that will show up Recessive allele, as the name suggested, there will be no noticeable effect, so it will not show up the function. So in this case, they give you an example. Let's use the capital uppercase italic letter P to represent dominant allele, and then lowercase italic letter p to represent recessive allele. What does it mean by that? Let's take a look. P is actually the purple color. Purple color is the dominant. Now we'll look at it later. So sperm or eggs carry one allele for each, only one allele for each. So remember that we talk about homologous chromosome. Okay, one chromosome is from your father, one chromosome is from your mother, right? So each chromosome carry one allele. So your father chromosome carry one allele, and your mother chromosome carry another allele. So when you form the sperm or eggs, then the two allele they separate. Remember the meiosis we talked about previously? Meiosis reduce the number of chromosomes from diploid to haploid. So in other words, all the gametes, they only have half of the chromosome. That's why this is what we call segregation or separate. Segregate is a fancy word for separate. So the gamete only get one allele, and then that's why fertilization. When sperm merge with egg, then the two allele will regroup. We call it law of segregation. Law of segregation is basically what happened in meiosis, that the diploid becomes haploid at the end. The four daughter cells, they are all haploid. So after fertilization, then they restore the diploid. So again, let me emphasize this. Gametes, they are one end. Gametes, they are one end. And then fertilization, they become two end. Okay, let's take a look at the cross with the allele assigned. Okay, remember the parent generation. I told you that they are purebred because they self-fertilize for many generations. So that the purple flower only get purple flower, the white flower only get white flower. So purebred parent, they have their allele, they are capital P. Okay, the allele we call it homozygous dominant here. So the purple flower is actually the dominant trait, dominant phenotype. So it is homozygous. Okay, I cannot finish the spelling. Homozygous dominant. And the purple flower, the white flower, we call it homozygous recessive. And because remember, this is 2n in here, 2n for each for both flower. So the gametes that they produce, as you know, that it is 1n. The gametes they are basically come from these two alleles. It can be big P, or it can also be, well, big P. Oops. Big P. So it can be big P. So this is the gamete it can form, or it can be big P. It's basically all the gamete from the purple parent is all big P. Similarly, for the white flower, all the gametes they are small p. So the arrow here is basically the meiosis here. Formation of gamete, meiosis. So all these are meiosis. One end are here, one end are the gametes. Meiosis, okay. So when you have a gamete, big P, and a gamete contains a small p, it doesn't matter which one is sperm, which one is egg, as long as they are from the purebred parent. Then remember, Gregor Mendel do the paintbrush to fertilize the parent generation. So he crosses the parent, purple flower with white flower, so that the big P combined with the small p. So this is the fertilization here. And you can see that here, all the F1 hybrid, they are all big P, small p. So you may call this as a zygote, okay? After sperm and eggs fertilized, of course we got the zygote, and the zygote will go through what? Mitosis, right? And then it will grow, become an adult plant. So this is the adult plant after going through mitosis. So fertilization gives you the zygote, and then zygote will go through mitosis. And then cell divides, and then you will have an adult plant. Adult plant will go through what? Meiosis. Oops. Adult plant will go through meiosis to make the allele. So it's just like human being. Just like human being. Meiosis. So as you can see that now you have the differences in here. The big P, when this F1 hybrid adult forms gamete through meiosis, some of the gametes will get the big P allele, okay? Some of the gamete will get the small p allele. The ratio is approximately 50-50%. Because of that, we call this big P, small p here. We call this heterozygous dominant. Okay, I'm running out of space, but you know what I mean, heterozygous. And then we call it dominant. Okay, why do we call heterozygous dominant instead of heterozygous recessive? Well, for obvious reason, the color of the F1 generation, they are purple, not white. Therefore, we call it heterozygous dominant because the phenotype is expressing the dominant trait. Okay, the dominant trait is purple. Because of that, we call purple flower, we call purple color as dominant phenotype. Because when you have one big P and a small p together, it is the purple color that expressed instead of the white color. Therefore, we call this heterozygous dominant, and because of this reason, we call the purple color as the dominant color. White color is the recessive color. Now you can see that the white color is not expressed, but the allele small p is still there. Okay, so it's not disappear, it's not vanish. The recessive allele is still there. It's just that it is not expressing.